Welcome to another episode of Break the Silence, Build the Future. I'm your host, Fortuma Kuso. If you have been following this season, we have explored grief and its many layers. From my own experience of losing my daughter and other losses I had suffered, to delayed grief, to owning your story with Victoria Allen, to embracing your imperfection with Molly Booker. And today, we will take the next step in this journey of grief, which is rebuilding. Because when you lose someone, a relationship, a version of your life you once knew, you're not just grieving that loss, you're also facing an identity shift. So, who are we after a loss? For me, as I had explained in previous episodes, if you invited me to do any kind of presentation, storytelling, like I said, I'm a storyteller. So if you invited me to any storytelling or other presentations, and you asked me to introduce myself anytime before May 26, 2023, this is how I would introduce myself. Hello, my name is Fatuma Kuso. I am a mother by devotion, a daughter by dedication, a sister by love, a friend by choice, an educator by profession, and a storyteller by birth. After my daughter went missing anytime after May 26, 2023, if you asked me to introduce myself, this is how I would introduce myself. Hello, my name is Fortuma Kuso. My daughter, Zahra Adam Boule, the eldest of my 5 children, went missing Friday, May 26th, 2023. 12 days later, her husband of 18 years been arrested and charged with the first degree of her murder. So you could see my entire identity, how I see myself, how I view myself shifted. My daughter's loss, her murder, her tragic end became part of my identity. So if we look back, if you look back any time you had suffered the loss and you were grieving, grief can come as an identity crisis. One of the hardest part, in my opinion, of grief is realizing that so much of our identity was wrapped around what we lost. Large part of my identity is wrapped around being a mother to my children, especially my daughter, because she was the person that gave me that title, that privilege, that gift, that trust to be a mother. She is the one who gave me that. All the other 5 children followed suit, but she gave me that. So you could see how my entire identity was partly for being a mother. So that could be the role we played in a relationship, a future we envisioned, or a version of ourselves that existed before the grief. So that is what we're looking at. So version of myself that existed before my daughter went missing and before we found out she was murdered was being a mother to 5 children, and Zahra being the oldest of my children. So that's how my life existed. So the grief isn't just about losing someone or some part of your life. It's about losing who we were when they were still here. For me, it was losing who I was when my daughter was still here. So I also lost a part of who I was as her mother in this world. Every decision I made, every plan I had involved her in some way or another. So you could see when she was taken, I had to ask myself, who am I now? And I'm sure this is a question that so many people struggle with after a loss. If I'm not a wife anymore, if I'm not a daughter anymore, if I'm not a caregiver anymore, if I'm not a partner anymore, if I'm not a worker or the manager in that company, who am I then? That is the question. And how do I navigate a world that suddenly feels so unfamiliar? Because I had to face a world that included me being a mother of a murdered daughter, me belonging to a club that nobody wants to be part of. So, who am I? How do I function in a world that feels that it's not the same world that I had when I woke up Friday, May 26, 2023, and I went to work and my daughter went to work? With that comes the fear of moving forward. At least in my experience, anytime that I was laughing, anytime that I was happy, anytime I was enjoying something, if I wasn't crying and falling apart, I was thinking, did I not love my daughter as much as I should have? Am I not feeling the pain of her loss as much as I should have? How could I be laughing? How could I be putting one foot in front of the other and going to work? Because it felt like I wasn't paying tribute to her if I was happy, if I was doing what I needed to do. As if embracing life again somehow means I was forgetting what I've lost. But here is the truth: moving forward doesn't have to mean leaving them in the past. It means carrying them with us in a way that allows us to continue living. It means speaking about what had happened to my daughter, helping another woman that might be in the same place, raising awareness of this pervasive violence that a lot of people suffer in silence, giving talks, creating this podcast, setting up the foundation in her name that would hopefully establish a center for learning and teaching in her name. I don't want us to be tied down to the moving forward in the sense of leaving the pain behind, because that is not possible. The only way, in my opinion, that we can go on, not move forward, to go on, is learning how to carry that pain, the love, the memory, the beautiful days, and the painful ones with us. It's recognizing that grief and joy can exist together, side by side. It's like mirror reflection. If you have grief, you have joy. If you have love, you have loss. And that we are allowed to become something new that blends the grief with the living, even as we hold on to the love we lost. I want to ask you, as my listener, have you ever felt guilty for trying to move forward? What has that looked like for you? I want you to think about, as you listen to this episode, to think about those experiences. Because if you're human, if you're living, and if you are not a baby, you have experienced a loss, not to the same level that I experienced it, hopefully, but nevertheless, you had experienced a loss, whether it's a relationship that broke down, or a job that you had lost, or a divorce, or illness, loss of health, anything it could be. So, have you ever felt guilty for trying to move forward? And what has that looked for you? The question is, how do we rebuild? How do we start again when everything feels different? The truth is, there is no step by step manual, but there are small ways to start finding a way to move. For me, it started with purpose. When I created the Zahra Bule Foundation, I wasn't just honoring my daughter, I was reclaiming a part of myself that had a reason to keep going. I had to find that reason to keep going, to keep moving, to find a reason, a purpose to keep going. For you, maybe it's returning to an old passion, building new relationships, or simply learning to trust yourself again. Ask yourself, what is one thing, just one thing that makes you feel like you again? Even if it's small, even if it's different than before, hold on to that. One of the biggest and most painful aspect of grief for me was letting go of the life I thought I would have, the relationship I thought I would have, the way I thought it would be. I would be the old person being taken care of, and my daughter would be the one that's taking care of me. When that plot is purchased as a gravesite, she'll be the one buying it, and I would be the one she's buying for. That's what I imagined. But I had to let go of that. And that happens every time I try to visit her gravesite once a week, which is painful. And it took me a lot of weeks, maybe 4 or 5 months before I could start doing that. Sometimes I don't go for 2 weeks because it just gets too much. But each time I walk up to that graveside, I think this is not the way it's supposed to be. She should have been the one getting out of a car and walking to my gravesite right now. But it's all so turned upside down, it makes no sense. So I had to remind myself to let go of the life I thought I would have. Because sometimes grief isn't just about losing a person. My grief is not just about losing my daughter, it's about losing the future I envisioned with her. And that is, I found, a separate kind of loss altogether that I don't hear people talking about. I remember realizing that so many of the dreams I had for her as a mother were no longer possible because my daughter was starting her university degree when she met this person. It was in the middle of her first semester of freshman year that she met this person. And from that time she met him, it was nothing but trouble. She couldn't finish that degree because he made her life living hell. She continued to drop, not being able to continue, not being able to support herself, trying to get a job and doing this and that, being battered and beaten up all the time and not able to make it to class, and on and on. So she finally was about to finish that degree. We just got that degree October of 2023, only 3 months after she was killed. So she just finished. She just reached that dream I had for her to get her degree and get as far away as possible from this person. That was not possible anymore. I had to come to terms with that. And that loss of that dream I had for her was heavy. And I'm still learning that letting go didn't mean forgetting. Letting go meant making space for a new future. When I didn't plan for, but I could still find meaning in it. Creating this foundation and becoming an advocate for women like her is a way that I am honoring creating a new dream that her and I can share. So I want to ask you now, what is something you had to let go of in grief? And what is something new you're making space for? I want to hear from you. Drop a comment or message me. Who were you before grief changed you? What's one thing you're learning about yourself in the process of rebuilding? Because rebuilding after a loss isn't about moving on, it's about learning who you are. It's about making space for a version of yourself, a new version of yourself to exist. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs it. And don't forget to subscribe because next week we're talking about how to create spaces and moments that allow us to honor our grief while still embracing life. Thank you for being here with me today and for sharing this journey with me. You are not alone. Until next time, bye for now.